So, today we're going to talk about a band that, well, wasn't really a band. It was more like a 50-year-long art experiment. Seriously, just take your rock and roll rulebook and throw it out the window. We're diving into Faust, the German group that pretty much declared war on music itself, armed with nothing but pure, glorious chaos. Let's get into it.
But first, let me ask you something. What in the world could possibly connect the artsy rock of Radiohead, the noisy rebellion of Sonic Youth, and the groundbreaking beats of a producer like Madlib? I mean, they seem like they're from different planets, right? But believe it or not, they all share a secret, foundational influence. And yeah, you guessed it, the answer is Faust. Their DNA is just scattered all across 5 decades of really groundbreaking music. From the industrial noise of throbbing gristle to the art rock of Radiohead. They weren't just influential, they were foundational. They were kind of the influencer's influencer, you know?
Okay, so let's meet the architects of all this chaos. This picture here is from 1971, when the band formed in a rural German commune called Vume, and their mission was singular. They wanted to take the rulebook of rock music, shred it to pieces, and then build something totally new and unsettling from the scraps. And their name, Faust, it literally means fist in German. I mean, how perfect is that?
It all kicked off with what's known as the Vume experiment. See, the commune wasn't just a place to live. It was an artistic laboratory, totally free from any commercial pressures, where they could just push sound to its absolute limits.
What they were creating ended up being central to this whole movement called Krautrock. You have to remember, this was post-war Germany. A lot of young people were trying to forge a new cultural identity, something separate from their parents' generation and from Anglo-American rock. It was a radical break. And if you think of a band like Kraftwerk, who were all about hypnotic, electronic order, well, Faust was exploring the exact opposite, pure sonic anarchy.
Okay, this quote right here perfectly captures their entire philosophy. This is the official reason that band member Jean-Harvey Piron gave for firing their first drummer. He was too conventional, too neat. He practiced too much. Can you imagine? In the world of Faust, being a good, disciplined musician was literally grounds for dismissal. It just shows their total rejection of every rock and roll norm you can think of.
And this whole experimental thing, it wasn't just in their music. No. Look at how they treated their albums as actual art objects. Their debut came out on clear vinyl with an X-ray of a fist on the sleeve. Another had this dizzying, unsettling up art cover. And for their album Faust IV, the cover was just blank musical sheets. The packaging was part of the statement, and usually it was a pretty challenging one. Now, all that rebellious spirit led to maybe their most legendary move ever. It was this brilliant act of commercial subversion. After they signed to Richard Branson's new label, Virgin Records, they released an album that would make them cult legends in the UK, all through this genius anti-commercial stunt. So, what was the stunt? It was all about the price. Virgin Records put out the Faust tapes, which was this chaotic collage of studio outtakes that was never even meant for release, for just 48 pence. For the price of a single, you could buy an entire album. It was this absurdly cheap and totally irresistible way into their world. And the result of this crazy idea? They sold over 100,000 copies. Think about that. An army of curious British music fans suddenly had this blast of German avant-garde noise in their record collections. It created this massive cult following almost overnight. For less than the price of a pint, you could have your mind completely blown.
And here is the absolute genius of it. Because the album was sold so cheaply, it was deliberately ineligible for the official music charts. So Faust got this massive distribution and huge influence without ever playing the commercial game. They basically hacked the system, proving that artistic reach and chart success could be two completely different things.
But, an approach this confrontational, it can't last forever, right? In 1975, after Virgin rejected their 5th album, the band broke up and just disappeared, vanished. For 15 years, their whereabouts were a total mystery, and that silence only made their myth grow even bigger.
Their history since then has been just as chaotic as their music. This timeline gives you a sense of all the fractures. They reappeared in 1990, but by 2005, the band had actually split into 2 separate entities, both touring under the Faust name. And then, just to add another twist, founding member Günther Wusthof rejoined one of the lineups in 2022, after a 49-year absence. Wild.
So let's break down that 2005 split, because it gets a little confusing. On one side, you had the Diermeier and Perron version of Faust, known for their absolutely wild, art-errorist live shows. And on the other side, you had Ermler's Faust, which was more studio-focused. They even released an album cheekily titled Faust is Last. It's a fittingly complex legacy for a band that never, ever cared for simple definitions.
So, what does all this add up to? After all the breakups and the splintering and the sonic assaults, what is Faust's enduring legacy? Well, it all comes back to that central idea, the uncompromising fist.
When you look at these two images side by side, the young sonic explorers in their commune and the seasoned performers still creating chaos on stage decades later, you see this incredible story of artistic survival. They never softened their edges. They never compromised for commercial appeal, and somehow, against all odds, they endured.
Ultimately, Faust just provided a blueprint for so much of what came next. Their noise and dissonance were definite precursors to industrial music. Their atmospheric experiments shaped ambient music. They proved an album could be a piece of conceptual art, and that success didn't require selling out. They took on the music industry, and in their own defiant way, they totally won.
Which kind of leaves us with one final question, doesn't it? After half a century of relentless experimentation, of breaking up and reforming, of fighting with the very idea of music itself, what is the Faust experiment still trying to prove? Maybe the point isn't to prove anything at all, but to simply never, ever stop questioning.